scale in your organization. Guys, if you come up, I'd like to introduce Troy Wood from HTC, area member, and these guys are going to be talking all about scaling. Go on, fast, go on.
Test. Can you hear me? Good morning. This is going to be a fun session today. I'm Troy Wood. I lead marketing at HTC Vive for North America. And we've been in the VR space since 2016. We've had a lot of traction in the enterprise space. So we've built out a full portfolio across hardware, software, platform, and services. And so it's great to be here in Dallas. A lot of clients in oil and gas, healthcare, government, military, basically anything that requires, secure deployment. So come check us out. We're at booth 601. I noticed there's seat drop little cards. You can get a t-shirt. We have been receiving people's room key cards, which they think, it's the same design as those little placards. So don't drop off your room key card with us unless, you really intend to. We have a new headset we're showing off in the booth. It has MR capabilities. You can tether it, you can stream to it, you can use that as an all-in-one. Come check that out. And then we also have our Ultimate Tracker, which is for body tracking, object tracking. And we just announced that it supports all SteamVR compatible headsets. So for those folks who are using Quest, Pico, Lenovo, come check that out. All right, so today, this session is called Go Bigger. It's all about scaling deployments. And so this is going to be more of like a war story session. So it might not be pretty going into all the details because scaling deployments is difficult. And our panelists know that firsthand. But they've persevered, and they're going to show you how to persevere as well. So I'll allow them to introduce themselves. We'll start here with Mohammed. Name, job title, company, and then description of your largest deployment.
Yeah, Mohammed Anwar. I work for Ford Motor Company. I'm the lead for IT deployments in industrial environment or manufacturing floors.
Yeah, Andreas Oeder. Thanks for having me. I'm from Airbus in Hamburg, and I'm the head of digital for augmented workers. And yes, we are deploying MR or AR solutions since 2012.
Hey, I'm Scott Berkey from Smurfit Westrock. We're a global consumer packaging and paper company. I'm in corporate IT, the evil empire, and we have extended reality technologies in a large portion of our factories, and we use to train and support factory workers. We also use virtual reality for how we engage and collaborate with our customers.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Lauren Cruz, and I work with Johnson & Johnson in our med tech sector. So all of the medical devices and med tech products that are used intraoperatively in surgeries. And I lead a small team that's responsible for our largest XR deployment in J&J, and that's in the education space. So education is an important and very critical part of what we do in med tech, making sure that our customers, our surgeons, nurses, healthcare professionals, and also our sales teams know how to safely and effectively use our products. So we've used XR in a couple of different ways to train more effectively and train more people on how to safely and effectively use our products. We've scaled pretty large. We've got a lot of headsets globally deployed across the world. And we just hit our 100,000th training session with our VR program, so we're super excited about that. But it's been a long road, learned a lot over the years, so hopefully can share a little bit that helps all the great work that you guys are doing scale a little bit easier than hopefully what it took for all of us. So thanks for having us.
Hello, everyone. My name is Adam Berg. I'm with Technip FMC in Houston. It's a equipment systems provider in oil and gas. I'm the leader of our XR, we call it Center of Excellence for the global community. Most of our use cases are internal use cases, so internal customers. Our big deployment this year was somewhat infrastructure related. And so for our 25,000 or so employees in 40 countries, by the end of this month, we'll have more than 80% of our employees will have access to the content on the headsets.
Great. Thanks, everybody. How about a hand for our panelists and their introduction? What a lovely group, lovely group. All right, so we put out a poll heading into the session and asked you to rank the topics that were most important to you in scaling deployment. So in order of importance, and that's the order that we'll go in, measuring impact, getting organizational buy-in, meeting privacy and security requirements, driving end user adoption, and choosing vendors. So format, we're gonna go through each of those. We'll try to do about 6 minutes each. I'll ask a question to a panelist, and then everybody else just jump into it. We'll make it conversational. All right, so measuring impact. Adam, you're currently in the process of scaling the XR efforts globally. A key component of that is showing results. So could you talk about how you work with the different business units and the people in the field to establish those KPIs, assign a value to it, and have a check-in process to show that progress?
Sure, Troy. So how many people have faced that situation where you're being asked by a director or executive or someone, like, what's the ROI? How quick is this investment going to pay off? And so your first reaction is to try and come up with a number that it's going to cost, and then to come up with a justification, and that this justification is going to easily explain this expenditure. And you can do that, and you should try to do that, but don't get stuck in only doing that. There's a lot of important metrics that are not monetary, but that are incredibly valuable, and you need to provide metrics, and they need to be good justification. And so for monetary, travel costs is an obvious one. We have several use cases. We're in 40 countries, and so traveling with equipment and doing it for lengthy periods of time, that's millions of dollars of expense. So eliminating or reducing travel is an obvious one and shouldn't be ignored. As far as non-monetary, there's safety is a great one. So if you're like us, like our business is very complicated and very technical and very dangerous. And of course the goal is to have 0 incidents, 0 recordables, 0 fatalities, and it's hard to get there. And so anything you can do to impact the safety, one of the things we call it is we try to engineer out the danger so that even if the operator doesn't follow the procedure, they still can't get injured. And so moving our engineering processes higher on what we call the hierarchy of controls gives you actually a measure of the risk that your workers are exposed to. And so if you can reduce that risk, it should lead to better safety metrics. So that's really powerful, and you can get the attention of the executives if you can, directly reduce that risk to your employees. So I would say do both. Go for the monetary metrics, but don't ignore the other metrics like safety, et cetera.
Great, thanks. How about some of the other panelists? How are you guys measuring impact and showing those results off?
One thing I'll add to what you were saying is sometimes we find that if we're not directly replacing something, it can be hard to say that whatever value, however compelling, was directly tied to the use of VR, because there are other variables and other things that people are using in their training experience. So while being really qualitative in that data is helpful, find stories to be pretty compelling. And so when you're able to kind of get in there and count a firsthand sort of success story of how exactly it was implemented, how it was used, the outcomes that were recognized as a result of that, those can be really compelling. They're hard to scale because it's one, kind of one individual story that you're gathering, and you're capturing all these stories. But if you keep capturing them and you have sort of a body of these stories, I think it tells a pretty compelling story.
You got to be willing to tell that story. You got to be willing to kind of tout the benefits and make sure that people hear about it, right?
Yeah, I think as well. It's hard to give some insights in advance. We don't know what the value is. So what we are doing is to try to do some value measurement. Means we look for a good use case where we think, okay, this is a low-hanging fruit in the beginning, which has the ability to scale afterwards. And then we measure before we use augmented reality, for example, for a check process. And then we do the same with augmented reality, and then we see, okay, there is a value, and it's worth to be implemented and scaled afterwards.
So, I mean, we to begin with, we try to have a very good problem description of what they're trying to solve, and we work with them to clarify. And then one of the things that we do is to ask them what the success will look like for you. I mean, what is the measure of success? So in the industrial environment where you're working on a manufacturing floor that are very sensitive and very secretive, but they are at a very large scale, most of the areas, the customers or business partners that come to us for a solution, they already have KPIs. They're in a production line, they're using like, maintenance time in hours, or, some sort of other efficiency or cost. They already have those metrics. So I think what we do is try to tie whatever they're trying to achieve with that KPI and matrix, and here is our ROI. So it makes it really easier to go about ROI if you can link to the specific KPI that area or that business partner is trying to resolve. And sometimes it's not clear at the beginning, but you have to work with them to make it more clearer, I guess.
Right on. All right, thanks all. I would imagine that having ROI is at the front of your pitch and the sell-in is key to getting organizational buy-in. So Scott, organizational buy-in. You presented yesterday on how to start in XR, and today's all about scaling. So could you talk about the different teams that you work across for that scale push? I think I heard you say that it's like cooking in your house versus running a restaurant versus running a chain of restaurants. So could you talk about organizational buy-in?
Yeah, it's all fun to have people over to your house and cook for them, but it's a different game, right? When you're responsible for running a professional business, and we in technology, in XR, in enterprise, we're running a business within our business. And when I started out in technology about 28, 29 years ago, all I wanted to do was write code all day. I wanted to just have my headphones on and Doritos and Dr. Pepper and just bang out code all day. But I spend a lot of time now in my career, and I have for years, working with finance, working with frontline workers, working in change management and safety and all these different things, and all things I was not trained for, in school. So when I think about organizational buy-in, it's I go back to, you've got to start with a pain point. You've got to always be addressing something that the business cares about, something that impacts the numbers, the profit, the cost savings, the revenues of the company, the safety of your frontline workers. You've got to land and begin and land on a good use case, right? And as long as you stick to that, you'll have an easier time. I would say that you're going to have to know how your business makes money, where the opportunities are. You're going to have to get out of maybe you're, like in my case, out of your IT persona, and you're going to have to understand the business of making corrugated packaging or cereal boxes or toothpaste boxes, and that can be uncomfortable. But if you focus on what the business cares about, focus on the areas for improvement, areas for cost reduction, for revenues, you're off to a good start, and always stick true to that. Somebody said something yesterday, I don't know who it was, Troy, we'll just say it was you. They said, there's no ROI on cool. And I think that's so true. A lot of times I've been guilty of pushing cool technology, and there's no real ROI on cool. There's real ROI on reducing travel, reducing workman's comp claims, and increasing efficiency and production in your factories. So I would say you've got to begin and end in how the business makes money or saves money or how you keep workers safe. Stay true to that. Know what metrics the business cares about. Have a baseline. If you don't have a baseline, set a baseline and start working to improve that over time. And I think the big thing that I always say is that you've got to get shoulder to shoulder with the business. You've got to get off your laptop in your basement or WeWork or wherever you're at. You got to get out, like in my case, out into the manufacturing facilities. You got to get out on the plant floor. You got to own the shop floor. You got to have full buy-in and be committed to what you're doing to continually monitor and refine what you're doing as you scale and stay on the front lines. So that's what I would say has worked for me.
Yeah, I think I can only agree on that. It's pretty important to be close to your customer. So in my case, I'm an IT guy. So I was happily working in the beginning of my career in the final assembly line, so I know a bit about the production processes. But what is important is really to partner with manufacturing engineering as well on our side to understand the processes and to see, is it possible to use this technology for a specific process? Is this necessary to change the process, perhaps? And of course, only then we can make it and implement a new solution only. At the moment, for some use cases, we have an additional effort using such technology, as we need to stick with the old processes still to really stay inside the law at the end. Especially for aircraft manufacturers, it's important to, of course, to take care about the safety during the production. And so we have to be aware of the processes and get the blessing at the end from the authorities.
So, yeah, you have to somehow show the value. That you have to have a very strong use case. But I think the most important thing is being persistent. You have to keep doing it, showing the value to the upper management and leadership. I mean, I have Alonzo Fisher in this room. He is from the airborne engine plant, and he's a training lead over there. And for 5 years, he had a lot of use cases. He was doing it. He was showing the value, and day or weeks. I mean, he has demos and everything. And now, just recently, Jim Farley, Ford CEO, happens to notice it, and he posted about it. Such a wonderful, and he actually acknowledged that for 5 years this person was doing it. So this is a great, I would say, like value and value and the strong use case. Be persistent. Just don't get discouraged that we are not getting that leadership buy-in. You will get it if you keep working and we're working on it, I guess.
Great. One of the core groups that you want to involve in that organizational buy-in is IT and security. So folks here wanted to know about meeting privacy and security requirements. Could you talk about that, Mohammed, in the context of navigating the infrastructure?
Yeah, so I probably want to...
Into the mic, please.
A pretty loaded subject, so I want to try to keep it, short. But let's start with the industrial environment. We are not talking about consumer. We are not talking about enterprise. We are talking about industrial environments, and industrial environment for manufacturing floors. For most of the companies, they are bread and butter because you are producing something, you are making money. If there is some issues or anything goes wrong at your floor, the cost is enormous. I mean, sometimes you cannot even comprehend how much the impact going to be. So when you talk about security, a lot of the time, we just confine it to just the data security. Security is way more than that. It's just not data security or privacy. Yeah, data security and privacy is very, very important, and that's actually the first most important thing they do when you talk about security. But security is beyond that. It's about business continuity. So at the end of the day, if your shop is running, you're making money. So for any reason, there is something is wrong, even because of the data privacy or anything, if the production slows down, that means that's a security risk. So what we do, we take any solution that XR solution, whether it's an application or whether it's a hardware, we take it through a very comprehensive, what we call security risk assessment. So basically what you are doing, you're anticipating the risk and you're mitigating them way ahead of time. So we have, and it's all about controls then. So we look at different risks that something can, that certain things can impose, and we look at the controls that are available in that solution to mitigate those risks. So that's what we do. And it's a huge list of 60 controls that over 60 controls that we look at. I mean, one of the major controls that we look at, or the most important control, is authentication, like how, like say your device or your solution, how people are accessing that solution. Are they getting authenticated properly? Your access, if the people that are accessing that controls, they have proper access to access that application or that solution. Then you have data, how your data is maintained. It is private. What are the privacy or security controls you have to maintain the data integrity, or the confidentiality? What kind of data you have? Is it confidential? Is it secret? What kind of data? So based on that confidentiality or data integrity, you put like more stringent control if your data is very, very, is confidential or secret. So, and then if you go down the list, I think two of the controls that sometimes people miss is, one is business continuity. So, even though you have the most secure environment, and people are getting authenticated, they are accessing the solution, everything is great, but at the end of the day, what you have to look at, like when the data is deployed at your production facility or your what you call your plant, is it running smoothly? So if people kind of end up deploying a solution in a production critical workflow, and at the end of the day something happens and then it impacts that your production workflow, then that's going to impact that business continuity and can result in an enormous cost. So we do look at, during our security risk assessment, we do look at that factor, because a lot of the time that factor is ignored. Another thing is disaster recovery. End of the day, like forever data breach or whatever happens, and your solution is not available. So then in that disaster situation, how are you going to recover your data? So I know that there sometimes security can risk assessment or security assessment can take a long time, It's just because you have to have those control to maintain your business continuity. A lot of people don't like that, but again, it is the business continuity that makes us money. If our production line are running, we are making money. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, other folks, what are some of the privacy and security requirements that you bump up against when you're trying to scale your deployment?
You know, what I was thinking about is that, so we manufacture, a big reality for us is we manufacture packaging for a lot of food and beverage and pharma companies. And like in particular in the food and beverage space, we're making packaging for a product that hasn't been announced yet. It's not public. So if we're making packaging for one of our favorite customers, Hershey's, because I'm looking at Andy Hunt from Hershey's in the audience, right? If we're making packaging for Hershey's, but that product hasn't been announced yet, we've got to be very protective of our customers' privacy, and we don't want images or data or information about that product getting out before their, commercials go on TV, that sort of thing. So that's another thing that we have to be mindful of.
Yeah, and perhaps to complement. In Airbus, we have implemented a process. It's security by design for our software and hardware implementations. And next to what has already been said, pretty important is, of course, as well export control. So we have to look after that. Who's using our data? Where's this data coming from? Where is it used? So is it dual use, for example? And so to look at this carefully is pretty important as well.
Adam, do you have something?
Yes, just a quick one. I won't go into the details, but one of the challenges was getting through our firewall. And there is many steps to work with the network and security people to allow the VR devices to get through the firewall. And so plan on that and expect some work on that.
How'd you do it?
So the short answer is that it was somewhat of a trial and error, and that you try to connect one device and and then it connects, but it can't. They can see it, but it's not getting through the firewall. So you have to change the settings, and it was a different process. It wasn't the same process in all the global locations. So we had to come up with a process to allow the users to get through the firewall. And then once you do it, it's the same for every location. I mean, all the devices in that location, but it's not the same for one location to another.
I'm glad we're not the only ones who experienced that. We totally revamped our fleet in 2020 and launched, and everybody was remote. It took us 2 years before everyone was back in the office to recognize that just how big of a hurdle. One, that not only we couldn't connect them, but then when we could, sort of like the easy route, certain functionality that was critical didn't work because of the traffic, web traffic navigation. And so navigating that is not to be understated. And so start early if that's important to you to use them on your corporate facilities.
Great. Maybe we should skip then into choosing vendors, since that has to do with accessing the systems. So Lauren, I know that vendor lock is top of mind for you when you're evaluating the different hardware and software solutions that are out there. Could you talk about your approach to choosing vendors based on how you're scaling for Johnson & Johnson?
Yeah, it's a term I heard for the first time yesterday, I think, vendor locking, and it spoke to my core. I'd say, thinking back a couple of years, the thing that I probably didn't anticipate, I knew, of course, we're going to have to partner with IT, we're going to have to partner and go through, the various security and healthcare compliance and legal and all of these hurdles. Wasn't clear exactly what the process would be or how we'd get there, but those were sort of known things. I think for me, the thing that was very unknown was sort of the balance of when you're starting and the vendors that you want to work with and you need to work with maybe are more fully integrated. They offer a lot of different aspects of kind of what you need. And that helps you get off the ground, that helps you demonstrate value, that helps you to be able to, really get going. But as you mature, that can be actually really challenging. And so starting to, at least, when you are starting small, just look across the board and be a little bit more thoughtful around, kind of where you're trying to go to or what other types of things you might want to do in the future. And then look across sort of all the technologies that you're using and that infrastructure and try to evaluate and figure out, do these pieces work together or not, as early as possible. And make the decisions around what are the things that you want to be doing internally, what are the things that you want to be doing externally through partnerships and working with different suppliers. And again, just sort of going through the motions of figuring out, do these things play nice together or do they not? The sooner that you figure that out, the better, because it can be really challenging and limiting in terms of scaling when you get into a position where you're spending so much money on one thing that is preventing you from moving into something else that you might want to do. And so just trying to be thoughtful, and it's really difficult to do. That's very easy for me to say at this point. It's very difficult to do in the moment. But at least, I think in looking around the floor here at this conference, there's a lot more suppliers in the space that are playing different parts of the ecosystem that are really needed to be successful with scaling VR and XR. And so hopefully you guys have a little bit more optionality and can be a little bit more thoughtful in putting together the right pieces to set yourselves up for success moving forward. But just as simple as thinking about like one use case is really, this is we're crushing it, it's our bread and butter, it's super successful. But obviously there's going to be interest in other parts of the organization. There's going to be other use cases that you identify. It's hard not to find places where you can apply these technologies and bring value, but it's really difficult to think about how you do that. What are the suppliers that you're going to need to have in place to be able to do that, and how well are they going to partner and work together to make it possible and actually just viable from a business perspective. There's tends to only be so many dollars that teams are interested or willing to invest in something, and it creates a lot of frustration when they do invest money and then they want to do something else and they're not able to do that other thing because of these sort of limitations that exist. So definitely something to, as much as you can be thoughtful about it ahead of time and probably talking to other people who have done it and sort of understand kind of where were those blocking points that they experienced is, you can't have those conversations. You can't have enough of those conversations, and you can't have them early enough.
Other folks?
Yeah, I would just say in all seriousness that attending this event and even bringing some of your coworkers to this event and get here early and stay late, totally serious, that there's so many opportunities. There's a lot of partners that we're already working with that we met at this event last year or from a connection related to this event. So, I'm not getting paid to say this, but just honestly, it's a huge opportunity to attend. This is a great event, and don't miss the opportunity to connect with a lot of the companies that are here.
Got the next influencer right here.
Yeah, it's tough because like over the last several years, the vendors that I started working with, 5 years ago, some of them went under, some of them got bought, some of them bought other companies, some of them advanced their roadmaps, their feature sets, some of them did not. And so I've had to kind of react to that with my strategy and architecture moving forward. And we don't talk a lot about vendors and like how to choose vendors. I think it's a great topic, and I appreciate your insight because we don't talk a lot about this in public circles, but I think it's important because just because you have a cool product and I really like you, and it doesn't mean that I can get you through our security process. It doesn't mean that you're an important or prioritized part of our roadmap. And it's a shame. There's a lot of smart people in the booths downstairs, a lot of brilliant XR thought leadership in our vendor community, but it's difficult to manage ever-changing landscape.
Quick one. So I think like, for industrial environment, so I see like a lot of XR technology, started in a consumer domain and kind of sort of stayed in that domain. Still when when I start to some of the vendors that becomes our solution partners, it's more like consumer focus. Everything is for there. You can set it up. Enterprise, it's very established now. Enterprise domain, like a lot of visualization and all that, it's pretty ready. But what is lacking? I still think that true industrialized, I mean, true application that you can take it and then you can just deploy it in your industrial domain like within no time. Still, we have to do a significant work because especially hardware, like look at the hardware. I mean, hardware, except like one device that I could got that was real, I would say, industrial ready device. We have to do a lot of work. It's a lot of time and effort that you have spent. Same thing with applications. There's tons of application. I mean, we have evaluated maybe just 5 years, maybe I can't even count how many applications that we have or solutions we have evaluated. How many we have in industrial environment right now? 4 or 5. So that is because they cannot, they cannot stand those requirements. The industrial environments or manufacturing environments are brutal. So that's how I think that it's time that as an industry we have to start thinking about if that's where the scale is. Like how are we going to design those devices? How are we going to design those applications that are just industrial ready or ready for scale?
Nice. So what I'm hearing is on the hardware side, it needs to be open, interoperable, built for enterprise,
Yes.
work within the infrastructure that you have, customizable to your actual deployments. And then on the software side, it needs to be, allow you to build the modules that are going to scale for different use cases.
So not for enterprise, I would say like one step further for industries. Sorry, not just for enterprise, one step further, industries, industrial environment. That's a little bit different than enterprise, requirements. Industrial requirements are very stringent. So something that you can take and then throw it out on your industrial floors.
Right on. Speaking of the industrial floors, Andres, I know that you've done a lot of work out in the field with change management and getting people bought in. Can you talk about how you work with the frontline workers to get their feedback, get them acclimated to XR, and some learnings that you've derived from that?
Yes, I think 2 aspects. Of course, on the one hand, if you want to start a new project with new technology, it's very important to involve the future customers very early. So check out what are the problems, can we solve the problems with the technology, get them onboarded, work together with them on the solution, and then make them really proud of it, what you develop together with them. This is, I think, a big success factor for later usage of such a solution. Then, after you have deployed and implemented this solution, it's important to have proper trainings in place. So, for example, if you use new devices, you need a specific generic training how to use the device, how to switch it on, how to store it, how to charge it, how to get data on it, how to get your programs on it, how to start your programs and shut down afterwards again. If it is necessary and you have data on the device, how to erase this data if this is not implemented in the solution by default. And then, of course, for each new use case, you need to have proper documentation for the software itself, user documentation, easy to read, easy to find, specific chapters inside of it. Then, of course, to have a training documentation, training material. It depends, perhaps on-site trainings, if you have a complex use case, really going with the customers inside their stations, showing them how to use the software and the device once, doing some elbow support so that they are able to contact somebody if they have issues, because nothing is worse than one of our blue-collar workers is using our application and devices, and then there comes an issue and there's nobody to help him. And often, especially with devices, it's not possible just to call somebody and then it's working. Perhaps you can use remote assistance, yeah, but in the most cases, it's better to have some elbow support, especially in the beginning of the implementation and the deployment, and help them directly. Somebody they can go to, and yeah. Another point, implementation of key users. So it can be this key user as well who can help them with simple problems. Yeah, how to problems, how to prepare my data, how to get the data on my device, how to switch on the device again. This can be done by a key user in the business units. So no IT support is needed for that.
I'd say don't underestimate how easy it is for somebody to try to use the technology, even if they believe in it, and there's so much data that says it's a better way to do this thing. But once they experience friction, and everyone has a different tolerance of friction, how easy it is for them to just sort of throw it back in the box and say, I've done this 1,000 times, I know how to do it without this technology. Any sort of friction along that pathway for them can just be, a non-starter, and how crippling it can be for them to then tell the next person, oh yeah, I tried VR, no, it's not good, I don't use it. And so just the importance of, education and all of that, but don't underestimate sort of like the focus on trying to create a frictionless experience, or as frictionless as possible, in something where there is friction that exists. And so setting the right expectation with people as well. People expect to navigate this technology like they do their phone, but they've been using their phones for how long, and they run into things and they need help, but they're just more comfortable with it. So just don't underestimate like how big of a barrier that can be, and really trying to make things as smooth as possible and set the appropriate expectations so they're not caught off guard when they do run into a hurdle at some point.
So one thing that we did that was exactly what you're talking about is we took approximately 260 users in a couple different locations, and one at a time had them go put the headset on and go through this one safety-related VR. And then when it was about 10 minutes each, and then when they were done, we asked them verbally, "What'd you think? How did it go? I see you're wearing glasses. Could you see okay, or could you see without the glasses?" Those type of things. And then we had them do a written survey afterward, and so we got 99% of those people gave the survey. So you have a ton of data there, and you learn so much. You learn that some of the people can do it with the glasses, some people cannot. You need to have a mirror so that, like, some of the ladies are reluctant to do it because it might mess up their hair and their makeup, and if you have the mirror there and they can fix it, they won't be reluctant to do it. And like all those type of things that you hear, that you learn when you're sitting there watching them and talking to the users. And because like you said, when you do that, you can make sure that they have a frictionless experience, and they are going to go tell their coworkers. And so you want to make sure that what they're telling the coworkers is good.
We found out, like, through those post-experience interviews and feedback sessions, we found out the same sort of thing, right, with things that we didn't think about, right? I don't care if VR messes up my hair, but some people do. I've got less and less hair every day. But we found out that people were afraid to look stupid, right? And they were afraid that other people were going to laugh at them or make fun of them. They didn't want to look dumb. And so what we did was we started to, when we got the first person in, we cast the experience up to a flat screen so everybody can see what it looks like in there to get them more comfortable. And so I think you've got to be real empathetic, and you've got to be there in the room with them, and you've got to have those conversations afterwards and listen to really kind of what the objections are, or you're missing out on some really good feedback that can help you in the future. You've got to follow that all the way through.
I agree to that. I mean, I think they are experts. I mean, a lot of the time, we ignore what they say, what their sentiments are. They know their issues better, especially on the plant floor. They are the best people. They are very intelligent. They are very focused. They their focus is to resolve an issue, resolve a problem, and we have to facilitate that. So a lot of the time there is a pushback, from other people other than plan. But you have to really listen to them, and then work with them and pay close attention what their issues are, and then try to resolve it, help them to resolve it.
Perhaps the last one, I think it's very important not pushing technology because of the technology. And it's really to solve problems, and the user has to be in the center, and we have to carefully listen to them. Yep.
That's great. All right, how about a hand for our panelists? Go bigger. Thanks, everybody. Good.